What's going on, guys? Clint here. Welcome back to the channel, Code Commerce. In this video, we're going to be building this dashboard in good old plain HTML and CSS and just a few lines of JavaScript. Everything is fully responsive. So if you want to see how I built this from start to finish, notice the nice tooltips there. So yeah, if you want to say I built this, then let's go ahead and get started. So I'm just going to shrink this down a bit. And there we go. I'm actually zoomed in quite a bit. So I'm going to drop that back to about right there. All right, so let's go ahead, and I'm already in VS Code, okay? I'm already in the folder that I'm gonna be working in, just a directory by the name of coding-sidebar. So what we're gonna go ahead and do is create our index.html file and also a style.css. So we're not gonna have a script file, we're just gonna have that inside of our HTML. So let's go ahead and say, I'm gonna say touch index.html and then style.css. And what that's gonna do is just create our files here off to the left. And we can go ahead and close that. So inside our HTML file, I'm going to use Emmet here to generate some boilerplate code there. And let's go ahead and can open up a live server, a nice little extension that we can view our file off to the right here. So as you can see, document, and then what we'll say is code commerce, we'll just say YouTube. So you can see that is what we are looking at right now. Okay, perfect. So to get started, let's go ahead and start off by entering in our HTML. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that right now. We're going to put this inside of our body tag, and essentially we're going to have three main containers here. So we're going to have a sidebar container here, this little bluish, dark navy blue side, and then inside our sidebar we're going to have this top div here. Then we're going to have this user div right here, and then just an unordered list here with a bunch of list items. And then over here, we're going to have our main. Okay. So, and everything is going to be fully responsive as well. So inside our body, we're going to create a div by the name of sidebar. So just using a shortcut, you can say period, then just name a class, just a nice little time saver there. So inside of our sidebar, we're going to have a div by the name of top, and like I said, we're going to have a div by the name of user, and then we're going to have an unordered list, just like so. So inside of our top here, our top class, we're going to have another div. We're going to say a logo, and inside here, what we're going to use, we're using box icons. So this menu here and all these icons, something called box icons. So let's go ahead and use that. So we're going to type in boxicons.com. This is it right here. Open it up. Got a bunch of little free nice icons here. So go ahead and click on the usage link there. And we're not going to install this with a package manager or anything like that. We're just going to scroll down and just use it as a font. It's super simple to use. So just copy this right here and then come back to your index.html file and literally just paste it in right there below the title. And that's going to be all that we need to do. Okay. So I'm just going to shrink that back down here, and there you have it. That's all we have to do to have access to all these cool logos here. So inside here, let's go ahead. Where were we here? Inside of our logo here, let's go ahead and add an icon. So I'm going to say I class, and for our class, this one's going to be BXL-CodePen. We're using the CodePen icon there. So as you can see, there it is. You see it on the screen. So that's how easy it is to use box icons there. So I'm going to give this a span here as well. And we're going to say Code Commerce. And this is what we're creating right here. So this whole part right here first. So below that div, below the logo div, let's create our menu. So we're going to have and this is going to be a class of BX, and then BX menu, just like that. And let's go ahead and give this an ID of BTN, because we're going to use this ID. That's how we're going to, delete that there. This is how we're going to use our JavaScript to toggle our side menu there. Okay, so next, we're done with this logo class. Next, let's go into the user div here. And we're going to have an image. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this over. Just the image that I'm going to be using. I'm going to pull it over right in here. Just this user-image, just me holding some lightsaber chopsticks. Pretty cool. All right, so next, let's go ahead and use this image. So I'm going to say image. Then the source is just user-img. Feel free to use mine, I guess, if you want to. Of course, you could just use a one of your own, then I'm going to give this a class of user-img, which we'll go back and style here in just a moment. So that's all we need for our image there. But just below our image, let's create another div here. It doesn't have to have a class, but inside here, we're going to have a p tag with a class name of bold. And I'm just going to say clamp B just like that. And then we'll say p, and we'll just say admin just like so. All right, so next, let's go ahead and attach our style sheets. So we'll say, we'll say link CSS here, just a nice little shortcut. And then let's open this up off to the side. There we go. And I hope you guys can still see pretty well. I might have to zoom out just a tad. I want to make sure you guys can see everything. So what I want to do is let's go ahead and give, I'm going to grab this user-img, and I'm just going to shrink this down a bit. I'm going to shrink that down a bit. It's just kind of hard to look at. So we'll say width of 50 pixels. We'll do something like that. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and say border radius 100%. And then I'll give it a border 1 pixel solid, and then just this little light gray color. Okay, so that's all we need to do there. So let's go back to our HTML file here. We'll go back to our HTML file, and so inside of our unordered list, okay, inside our unordered list, what we're going to have here is a list item. And inside of our list item, we're going to have a couple things here. So we're going to have an anchor tag. And I'm just going to put a number sign there. It's not actually going to go anywhere. And inside of our anchor tag, we're going to have an icon. So I'm going to give this a class. And this class is going to be bxs-grid-alt. And so there it is right there. Feel free to look through all of their icons. They have some pretty cool icons there. So just below that, we need another span here. And I'm going to give this span a class of nav-item. I'm going to call it dashboard, just like that. Now, below our, outside of our anchor tag, but still within our list item, I'm going to create another span with a class of Tooltip. And I'm going to say dashboard as well. Perfect. So as you can see, this is going to be our that little tooltip is going to be the hover tooltip you see there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is that's our list item there. So next, what I'm going to do is just, I'm going to copy this down a handful of times, and let's see here. It looks good there. May have done too many of them. So after dashboard, next we're going to do, let's do products. We'll change that. Feel free to skip through this part if you'd like. I'm going to say categories. Then we're going to do orders. Let's see here. Orders. And we're going to come back here and change the icons as well. So customers. Then we're going to have, after customers, we'll have shipping. And then we're going to have settings. And then we'll have logout. And log out. Cool. And I believe, yeah, that's it. We don't need this one down here. I copied down too many of them. Okay. So that looks good there. Now let's go ahead and change up some of these icons. So for the log out here, we're going to say bx-log-out, and we should see a new icon over here. Zoom in just a little bit there. Perfect. Now the next one for settings, we're going to need bx-cog. There we go. Now for shipping, it's going to be bx, what's this shipping one? -location -plus. Okay, perfect. And then for customers, we're going to say bx-body. Okay, perfect. And then for orders, the orders is going to be bx-food-menu. Okay, and then for categories, we'll say bx-list-check. And then for our products, it's going to be bxs-shopping. Or this is the wrong one there. for our products here, there we go. BXS shopping bag. Okay, so I think that is all of our icons. That's looking good so far. All right, so that's basically all of our HTML. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in some JavaScript here. And again, I'm adding it inside of my HTML file. We're only going to have like 4 or 5 lines. So it doesn't really make sense in this case to have an extra script file, in my opinion. So we're going to say script down here, and this is going to go outside of our body tag element, but within our HTML file. Okay, so we need to have a way to grab our buttons. So I'm going to say we'll say let btn equal to document.query selector, and we're going to grabbing the btn there. And just to show you guys, we gave it an ID of btn here. So this is what we're grabbing, our little menu button there. We already gave it the ID of btn. So that's how we can grab onto that. So next we'll say let sidebar equal to document.query selector. And here we're going to grab sidebar, which again is our class of, where are we at here? Our class of sidebar, this one right here. So basically our main component there, main container. And we're going to add a function here. So we'll say btn, which is just this element, this ID that we're selecting. We'll say on click, and we're just going to run a function here. And inside the function, we'll say sidebar.classList.toggle. And in here, we're going to toggle an active class, which we don't have yet, obviously, because we haven't added in any styling. But that's what we're gonna toggle. So I wanted to go ahead and add that in there first. That way, it's going to make a little bit more sense and be a little more fun whenever we're doing our styling. So let's go ahead and we're done with all our HTML here. We're done with all the icons. We're done with our JavaScript. That's literally right there, like 4 lines that we're using. So next, let's go ahead and style this thing here. So I hope you're still able to see this pretty well. I like to be able to see what I'm doing. I think that makes sense too. So next, what we're going to do here, we're going to come to the top and use the asterisk here. And what that's going to allow us to do is basically just add some global styling. So right now I'm going to set all the margin to 0, and we'll set all the padding to 0, and we'll say box sizing, border box, and then let's give this a font family. We'll use that Sego, or however you say that there. Perfect. So that's looking pretty good so far. Looking a lot better. Now we already have our image styled, so we didn't have to see my big face. And next, let's go ahead and style. We're going to grab our sidebar here, right? Basically our main div there. And just so you know, just to show you, this sidebar is everything, this navy blue there. Okay. So for our sidebar, say sidebar, we want to position this as not relative, but absolute. And we'll say top 0, left 0, height is going to be 100 viewport height. So it's the entire height of the screen. And we'll say a width of 80 pixels, and then a background color of, we'll say 12171E. So it's kind of like a navy blue. Let's give some padding here, 0.4 rem top and bottom, 0.8 rem on the left and right. And then let's give it a transition for whenever we transition. We'll say 0.5 seconds and then ease. Okay. There we go. Perfect. And if we want to, what we can say, we'll say width 250 pixels. This is what we're going to be toggling here. Or you know what? Let's go ahead and we'll do this. Let's go ahead and delete that. We'll leave it as it is. And let's go ahead and kind of set up all our toggling so we can see what's going on here. So let's see here. So next, let's start using our active class that we just did with our JavaScript. So what we can say is sidebar.active. We use this little tilde there, and we'll say main-content, which I guess we didn't. Let's see, do we have our main content in here? I guess we never really added our main content. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So back inside our HTML file, we're gonna do this outside of the sidebar div here. So literally just above this body tag here, the ending body tag, we'll say create another div. We'll give it a class of main content, just like that. And then we'll use a container here. We'll say, I'm just going to say code commerce. So there we have our H1 you can see there. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure we could have, and this is what that's going to be, obviously right there. Okay, so all right, so hopefully that makes more sense as we write some CSS. So what we're going to say in here, left 250 pixels, and then the width we're going to say calc 100% minus 250 pixels. There we go. And we haven't hooked anything up yet, but as you can see, we're starting to see some changes. So let's go ahead and use this. We want to change the width of our sidebar. So what we'll say, sidebar, whenever it is active, then we're just going to change the width to 250 pixels. There you go. So as you can see, it's getting some nice changes. I don't know if you can see what I'm clicking on. You can barely see it because we haven't given our button that white color yet. Let's go ahead and do that right now. And give some space down here. So for our button, let's say sidebar, and then we're going to grab our BTN just like that. And then for our button, we're going to position this as absolute. So we'll say position, sorry, not relative, but absolute. And then let's give it a color of white. That way we can actually see it. There it is. Okay, so we'll say top 0.4 rem. And then we'll say left 50%. And just if we toggle this down, it makes more sense if we do it this way. So we'll say left 50%. We'll say font size 1.2 rem. Then let's say line height 50 pixels. We'll translate on the x-axis. So add that in, that x there. We'll say negative 50%, and then cursor pointer. There we go. So yeah, there you can see it right there. Everything's looking good so far. Now, whenever our menu's active, we want our button to be over there. So we'll say sidebar whenever it's active. Grab the BTN, and we can just say left 90% or 95. 90% looks good. Perfect. So that's looking good so far. So all of our text is still that black color. So let's go ahead and change some of that. So we'll say sidebar top, we'll say logo, color of white. When display flex, I'll say height 50 pixels, width of 100%. Align items, we'll say center. Pointer events, I'm going to say none. And then let's give this an opacity of 0, because we actually don't want it to show when our sidebar is closed. However, whenever it's open, we do want it to show. So let's go ahead and add an active class here. So we'll say sidebar.active top logo, opacity of 1. So now we can see it there. So when it's closed, the opacity is 0. It's there, you just can't see it. And then when we open it up, you can now see it again. Okay. And let's style our icon here. So we'll say top logo, let's say font size, we'll say to rem, we'll say margin right 5 pixels. There we go. Perfect. And again, when we close it, it kind of disappears. So everything's looking pretty good so far. Smash the like button, you guys, if you feel like you're getting value out of it. I'd appreciate it. And leave me a comment down below. Let's say user, let's grab the this little text right there with our name and our role there, which is admin. So we'll say color. We'll give it that white color, and we're gonna do the same thing here. Opacity. Give it an opacity of 1. We'll say margin left 1 rem. There we go. And we actually want this to display as flex. We'll add it in right here. So we'll say user, we'll say display flex, light items, center, margin 1 rem, and then 0. Yeah, perfect. That is looking good. Let's add our bold class. We already added if you remember, we added our bold class to the name there. So we can go ahead and add that in. We'll say bold, and we'll just say font weight 600. Perfect. Okay, so next for our p tag, so we don't actually, if you close that down, I don't know if you can see, you still, there it is, you can still see our name there. So we actually, let's change that right now. We want the opacity to be 0. So we'll say opacity to 0. And let's just copy this down one. But whenever the sidebar is active through our JavaScript, we want the opacity to be 1. So if we open this up, you can see it. When we close it, the opacity changes to 0 and it disappears. All right, so next, let's go ahead and let's take care of our list items down there, looking kind of funky. So we'll say sidebar unordered list items, and let's position these as relative. The list, there we go. The list style type are going to be none. And there we go. So let's say height of 50 pixels. We'll say width of 90%. And margin is going to be 0.8 rem, and then auto. Okay, and we'll say line height of 50 pixels. Perfect. There we go. That looks like a good height and width. Now let's style the actual links here, our anchor tags. So we'll say sidebar on our list item, anchor tag. We'll say color white, and then display flex, align items to the center, text decoration is going to be none. Border radius is going to be 0.8 rem. Hey, perfect, looking good. You can still see our tooltips there. If you zoom in, you can still see our tooltips. That's okay. We're going to take care of that in a minute. And let's go ahead and add a hover class. We'll say sidebar or list item, our hover, and we'll say background color. And then our actual color is going to be that blue color. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Looking good. Looking good. Perfect. That's what we want so far. And so next, what we want to do, let's do our icons here. We're going to add a little spacing in there. So what we'll say is sidebar on our list item, anchor tag, then our I class, which is our icons. We'll say min width, sorry, not none, 50 pixels. And we want the, what's going on there? Text align. Text align is going to be center. And then the height is going to be 50 pixels. A border radius of 12 pixels. Doesn't really make sense right now. If we just close that down, this is what we're doing here. And then we'll say line height 50 pixels. So everything is lined up evenly. And so our nav item, which is basically our span here, this white text that you see, not the little black tooltip, but the white text, we don't want that to appear when our nav bar or sidebar is closed, only when it is active. So let's go ahead and add a, we'll say sidebar nav item. And what we're going to do is just change the opacity to 0. And then we'll do the same thing, but just add an active class here. So whenever our sidebar is active, which we're toggling with our JavaScript, we'll just change the opacity to 1. So whenever we, nice little hover effect there, whenever we toggle that, you can now see our text. Perfect. So everything's looking great so far. Next, what we should probably do is style our tooltips here. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll say sidebar ULLI. We're grabbing our tooltip, and let's position these as absolute. There you go. And we'll say left 125 pixels. We'll say top 50%. Transform, we'll say translate -50% and -50%. Then let's add a box shadow. And we'll say, I'm just going to copy this over here. I don't want to type it all out. Box shadow, 0 on the top, 0.5 on the right, 0.8 on the, or sorry, left and right here, and then 0.8 at the bottom. Then just say an RGBA, basically all black with a little bit of a shadow there, opacity there, I mean. So that's what it's looking like thus far. Looking pretty good. Now next we'll say, let's give it a border radius so it's a little bit rounded edges there, say 0.6 rem. There we go. And we'll say padding 0.4 rem on the top and bottom. And then we'll say 1.2 rem on the left and right. There we go. Perfect. Now let's say, let's give it a line height of 1.8 rem. Just kind of shrink it down a little bit. There we go. And we're going to give it a Z index of 20. And this is what we want right here. However, of course, we don't want them to show. You still see it when our navbar's open. We actually don't even want them to show unless they're hovered. So we're going to give this an opacity of 0, and that's going to make them disappear. And then we'll just add this side, basically the same thing right here. We can just copy that. But we're going to add a hover selector on our list item. And whenever we do so, we can just change the opacity to 1. So now whenever we hover, as you can see, we have our nice tooltip. Yeah, looking good so far. Looking good, looking good. All right, so next, a few other things here. So if you hover over these things, you can see our tooltip is still showing, right? And we don't want the tooltip to show at all whenever our sidebar is active, right? When we're expanded out like that. So let's just say, we'll say sidebar active on our list, a list item, then our tooltip. What we'll say is basically when our sidebar is active, we're grabbing the tooltip class within on our list and list item, and we're just going to display none. So it just disappears completely. Oh, there you have it, there you guys. All right, cool. So that's basically our sidebar. Now let's take a look at our main content on the page here. I'm just going to shrink this down a little bit. Hope you guys are still be able to see this. Apologies if the screen's too small. Let me know in the comments, and I don't want to do it this way again. I'm used to working on one of the 49-inch widescreens, so there's lots of real estate to see there. Okay, so let's go ahead and change this here. Okay, so and all we have to do is come down here. We'll add it at the bottom. So, and this is on our HTML, our main content div, which is outside of the sidebar div there. Okay, so what we'll say is main content, and we want this to be position relative. We'll give it a background color of that gray. Whoops, forgot to close that off with a semicolon there. And let's say min height 100 viewport height, and then we'll say top 0. We'll say left 80 pixels, and we'll give it a transition of all 0.5 seconds ease. And our width, our width is going to be, we'll say calc, and we'll say 100% minus 80 pixels. And make sure you guys to have your spaces in here, but if you did that and you didn't add the space in between, like the minus, that won't work. So make sure you have some spacing in there. And we'll give it a padding of 1 rem. There we go. There we have it. Perfect. So let's just see. I'm going to open this up a bit here, and I'm going to shrink this down. We can close that for now. So let's see here. We'll create, or I tell you what, let's go into our HTML file. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. I'm just going to show you how everything's working. So we have our container, and let's create we'll create another H1 here just to see right side, just to make sure everything is responding correctly. So if we said container, we just display it as flex, justify space between, not around, we want between. Want to make sure that goes to the opposite side. And whenever we, as you can see, whenever we toggle, it isn't getting pushed off the screen. And that's all I just wanted to show you with this right side div, because sometimes you didn't want your content on your page, whenever you expand your navbar, your content to fly off the right side of your screen. So there you have it, you guys. We have our tooltips on hover, and we have our navbar sidebar fully expanded. Everything is looking great. And in the future, I'm almost done a React basically a React dashboard using the similar sidebar, and we're also creating a Next.js project as well. So if you want to see that, stay tuned, subscribe to the channel. I'll be releasing those here in the next week. Make sure you smash the like button, you guys. I hope you got some value out of this. Thank you for watching. Leave me a comment, and I will see you on the next video.